Hello and welcome to the Small Business Sewing Podcast. Join host Cathleen, that's me, from Sunny Mountain Patterns, and Branalyn from Dailey Sews and Stuff, and guest experts as we discuss how to run successful sewing businesses, innovations in sewing, and ways to make more money doing what you love.
Hey guys, and welcome back to the Small Business Sewing Podcast. This is Branalyn. I'm here with my co-host Cathleen and our friend Charlotte Curtis, who has written the program PDF Stitcher. And if you are in the Projectors for Sewing group, Charlotte is a member of the Projectors for Sewing group, and she noticed a huge problem with being able to automatically stitch together patterns to use for projecting. And then because she's a programmer by trade and a problem solver by hobby, she decided to go ahead and solve this problem for all of us. So Charlotte, why don't you tell us about PDF Stitcher and kind of how it developed? And there's been a huge update recently. So tell us all about what's going on.
Sure. So I guess I discovered Projectors for Sewing about August last year, I think. I don't know where it came from. I'm on a whole bunch of different Facebook groups for sewing, so I probably saw a reference to it somewhere, and then immediately went and bought a projector and, got it up and running. And the very first pattern that I went to make, just a simple little sleep sack for my daughter, it didn't have a projector ready file. So the PDF was one of these ones where you print it out and then assemble all the pages together, the typical PDF pattern. And
that's what we were all doing before Projectors.
Exactly. Yeah. And it works. It's just, this whole little arts and crafts project that you have to do before you actually do your sewing project.
Right. Like an entire night where you have to get ready to start to get ready.
Yeah, by the way, every now and then I just get my husband to do it for me, and that was, a reasonable system. But
I don't trust my husband. It would be all crooked.
My kids are way too young to put to work on that.
Yeah. So in any case, I sort of looked around to see what people were doing to assemble these patterns, and I saw things using Inkscape, which I did, but Inkscape has its glitches and it was slow and manual and tedious, and I have very low tolerance for manual tedious things that can be automated. So I just decided to write a little Python script that would assemble the pages together. So the very first version was this incredibly non-user friendly command line thing where you have to write, download Python, install Python, execute like Python, and then like -P and put in your pages. And yeah, it was
like Windows 95, 93 when you had to go like call your dad on his bag phone so you could ask what the command prompt was. Yeah, it's totally like
that. Exactly. Put in your program disk, take that out, put in your save disk, that kind of thing. Yeah. So I shared it anyway. Like I said, hey guys, look, I made this thing, and people were pretty excited about the results. So then I started putting together the graphical interface. And it was still in Python, which is not the best program for graphical programming.
By the way, hold on, Charlotte. If everyone else is not a programmer, Python is a programming language. It's one of the many ways you can do programming. I'm not a programmer. I hated that part in engineering school.
Oh, are you an engineer as well?
Yeah, I'm mechanical, so I'm like harmless.
Yeah. Yes, I'm electrical. But yes, I should take a step back. So Python is a programming language. It's one that I use in my job as a data scientist, which is not exactly the same thing as a programmer. Like what I do at work, what I do at work, I never actually have to share with people and get feedback and, tell other people how to use it and everything. So that side of it is, I do something and I'm like, oh, that seems pretty straightforward. And then people start using it in ways that I never expected. But in any case, people I got so much great feedback, and people offered to translate it into different languages. And, it kind of grew quite a bit from the humble little script that it was last fall. And then I posted a poll sometime around Christmas, I think, asking people what their most desired new features would be. And the number one thing was basically making lines thicker, which seems like a really easy, like simple little problem, right? Like you open up a PDF and sometimes you try to project it and the size that you want is really hard to see because it's so thin, or maybe it's got a funny dash pattern, or it's like pale yellow, or there's all kinds of reasons why you might not be able to see it. So I thought, well, let's see if we can try and modify line properties. And that I really dug deep into how PDFs are made, and they are never intended to be modified. So writing a program to modify them was quite challenging.
Which, by the way, if you're a pattern designer and listening to this, please note, if you're looking to make projector files, make thick lines that are dark.
Oh,
Here's a little tidbit.
I have
You
this
have
on
this on.
on our thing to talk about in a second because
Oh, okay.
yeah, I think people can really learn as designers what to do and what not to do based on what Charlotte has done with her program.
Yeah, but we're coming out with a paid course
Yep, that
that
too.
is going to walk you completely through. I have a 15-minute workflow on how to convert it on Illustrator, all of the standards for the minimum sizes you want, so you don't have to keep experimenting. I've done all the work over the last 5 months on this. Not to, of course, Charlotte's program is awesome, and it's useful for people who are using the program,
Right, using your pattern.
or if you have a PDF pattern and you need to convert it over to projectors. I might actually have to talk to Charlotte about this later for using her program for the course as an add-on. Anyway, but if you're a designer, I found out that it's 3 points or higher. 4 points, 5 points is actually better in thickness. All the dark stuff, everything you want in the lower left-hand corner when you're looking at the little color chart on Illustrator. Inkscape, same thing. There, you don't have to take my course now. All right,
Yeah,
sorry, keep going.
No, I absolutely, if you are a pattern designer and you can design your files for projector compatibility, that is so much better. Like, I've always seen my program as kind of a stopgap measure for the next couple of years, maybe, while pattern designers haven't quite gotten into the projector space yet. So,
all this is new. There's no standards.
All so new. So this is basically designed to be a way to use your patterns that you know and love, while the designers in the back end are figuring out how to update them. And we're seeing that more and more every day. I see pattern designers updating their patterns with projector files, and
because like you
definitely
said,
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, just gonna say definitely better if you can get a projector file directly from the designer. Yeah.
Well, like you said earlier, you thought it was going to be super simple. Well, maybe not you, but the people asking thought it would be super simple just to change the line thickness. And then that was a huge deal. So, I mean, that's the same thing for our designers. We can't immediately expect them to meet every demand of these projectors. And
yeah, let me tell you, it's a lot of work.
Right.
Especially if you are not designing already in Illustrator or Inkscape. I actually tried to do a module for Inkscape and I had to take a break several times because Inkscape is not as user-friendly or has as many features as needed for actually designing with multiple layers, which is basically what customers demand. But bring it back to a business sewer that's sewing for their business. The PDF Stitcher is useful because if you already have the PDFs already, you paid for them already, and your designers have not offered a free add-on with the projector files, or the projector files are terrible, which, by the way, a lot of them do that. They just slap it on. They're like, done, it's on a bigger sheet of paper, which is not a projector file. It's just on a bigger sheet of paper, by the way. You might want to use PDF Stitcher to convert it so it's easier. More margins, thicker lines, just like what Charlotte was saying. This will save you time because you're not printing out and managing all this paper in the future. So you can still convert your old PDFs, of course, only for yourself. You can't resell them. That's smarmy and probably illegal. And you can save yourself time not putting all these together, worrying about whether or not they're going to get crinkled or messed up by your kid. Talking from experience.
Get colored on.
Yeah, get colored on and then just project it right onto the paper. Or even if you go to print shops, you can send it to a print shop and just have one big paper instead of putting it together and then worrying about the tape wearing out and missing a piece.
Yeah, we've talked a lot on. we talked a lot about on the podcast about projectors and just how time saving they are. And so what Charlotte's program does is take something that's a letter or an A4 size and make it projector friendly. Go ahead, Charlotte. What were you going to say?
I was going to add the caveat. I've had a lot of people ask if you can use PDF Stitcher to make a file that is compatible for print shops. You sort of can. But the problem is that most print shops want it to be A0 format or 36 inches wide. And PDF Stitcher just takes the pages as if you were printing them out and then assembles them together. So there's no constraint on the actual dimensions. So generally speaking, the result from PDF Stitcher is larger than A0. Or it might be a it's probably not going to be exactly the right size and shape to be printed out at a print shop. So
what you'd have to do from then is convert it over in Inkscape or Illustrator into an A0 sheet. Basically, exactly. And then print that as a PDF and have them print it.
So it would certainly cut out some steps, but yeah.
It still cuts out a lot of steps though, because trust me, I just spent all yesterday converting one of my PDFs into a file for Inkscape so I can show on the course that I'm recording. I'm sorry I keep mentioning it. I'm in the middle of doing it right now. And that was painful.
Yeah.
I now hate Inkscape with a passion. But I love Inkscape too, so please don't break on me. Thank you.
So before we keep going down this road, because we do need to talk about some of these things, we should probably mention PDF Stitcher is a free app. It is an open source software, and I'll let Charlotte explain that in just a second. But Charlotte and I have also talked about this a lot on my YouTube channel, Daily Sews and Stuff. We did an interview there, and then I did a tutorial on the version 3 of PDF Stitcher. And now I'm guessing version 4 is in beta testing. And so pretty soon, that will be completely out, I'm guessing. And then I'll be doing a video on that too to show the updates. But Charlotte, tell us what open source software is and, kind of about how you went through these versions and have gotten where we are now.
Sure. So open source software, Inkscape is a great example of an extremely large piece of open source software. So open source software is free, but it's more than free. You can go and download the source code and make any changes you want, and anybody who wants to can contribute to it. So it's not only is it freely sharing the program, it's freely sharing all of the intellectual property that goes into the program. So so far, I haven't had too many other contributors, but
most of us are not also programmers.
Well, yes, and that's quite typical. Most open source projects begin with a single person and then are often single person driven. When they get really big, the Linux operating system, for example, is open source. So the entire operating system, you can download the source code and do whatever you want to it, and make some awesome changes and contribute it back. And that's a big enough, network of people that there will be people reviewing your code changes and, making sure it's a bit better. For PDF Stitcher, it's mostly just me. I don't have the best of testing or documentation or any of this, nice stuff that surrounds really mature software packages. So that's why there's glitches. Someone will try something out with a new type of PDF from a new pattern designer that I haven't tested, and it might just not work because the way that PDF was made is different than how the ones I tested it on. And that'll happen. Or sometimes I might change one thing and then it breaks something completely elsewhere and I forgot to test that. And,
Yeah, and when it's you checking all those lines of code, it's a lot of work because it's like you might have just missed one space in between something. And it's so hard to check for that. You've got to run line by line.
Yeah.
I hate programming, by the way, for that reason.
And sometimes I don't even think about the way that people might want to use it. I remember when I first made the line thickness modification, and then a couple people said, oh, it'd be great if you could do units other than points so that we can add a seam allowance by just changing the line thickness.
Which, by the way, if you're a European designer, add seam allowance.
And that's just
also my course.
Never even thought about that. Sure, yeah, you can.
Yeah, I didn't know you could get patterns without seam allowance, because in the US, I'm sure in North America, for the most part, seam allowance is already included. Or if they have seam allowance, they show the stitching lines too.
But a lot of companies don't, because it's easier to make pattern alterations if you don't have seam allowance. So there's arguments both ways. But when you're projecting, the seam allowance is really nice because it's a lot harder to just add a 1/4 inch or however much it is.
Right, because your hands get in the way of the projector. So for people that are listening, other examples of free open source software other than the PDF Stitcher that Charlotte's talking about is Inkscape, is the free Illustrator equivalent. It does not have all the features, of course, because they're not paid. Photopea is a Photoshop equivalent. It's web-based only, so you don't have to download anything. And Valentina is a pattern drafting equivalent. I actually have not used it, mostly because I was too engrossed in reading the whole break between the Russian coder and the US promoter. And I was like, oh, maybe I should wait for a little bit. But those are all probably open source software that you're going to be using a lot if you're looking for free open source software. PDF Stitcher, Inkscape, and Valentina, all you have to download. And Photopea is web-based, like I said. So these are all probably things you're going to be using if you're a sewer for business, whether you're a pattern drafter or you're sewing physical items.
And if you make videos, you can use something like DaVinci Resolve, is an open source software for editing your videos. It's really robust. So there's a lot of really nice programs that are free. They're open source. Anybody can download it and use it, and like Charlotte said, contribute to it if that's something that you know how to do and want to do. But for those of us that don't know how to do that, whenever Charlotte does make a change, or somebody else makes a change and it causes a glitch, or possibly your pattern doesn't work because it's a different kind of pattern, Charlotte, what can people do to help resolve that issue?
Well, definitely tell me. I do try to do periodic searches for, the keyword PDF Stitcher in the Facebook group, because people will often say, help, this is going on. What am I doing wrong? And, most people assume that they're doing something wrong. And most of the time it's not their fault. It's mine. Or
it's not your fault. It's just an unexpected format of the pattern.
Yeah, these things will happen. So that's one way. Another way is you can submit a bug report on my GitHub. That does require signing up for a GitHub account, but I should say GitHub is a sort of repository for all sorts of different programming projects. So most of them are open source, and there's private GitHubs as well, but anything you can see publicly on GitHub is an open source program where you can download and contribute and all that stuff.
What's your GitHub handle, or whatever they call it? I don't use GitHub.
So my GitHub name is CF Curtis. Charlie Foxtrot Curtis.
I'm just typing this down in the show notes so it's easy for people to find.
Yeah.
And if you want to buy her a coffee, she has a donation, just to plug that, because she's done so much work on this. She deserves to get.
So like we've said 14 times, it's open source software. It's free for you to use. But if you want to contribute, to Charlotte for her time and effort and so much work that she's put into this, there's a link for that too. She can use it for some coffee or some fabric fund. She's Canadian. They like coffee a lot. So I hear.
I do like coffee a lot. Yeah.
So what's the buy your coffee link? Do you know off the top of your head?
I think it's paypal.me or something. I was actually really reluctant to share a PayPal link initially, because it feels strange to ask for money on something that I, never intended to make money on this, and I don't want people
but
to
you spent the time.
obligated. But I also recognize that people want to show their appreciation somehow sometimes. So
just mail her a coffee, just get it hot, put it in a thermos, and pack it up. She'll set up a PO box. It'll be fine.
It'll sit at the border for a few weeks. Yeah.
Right. I have a link that she gave me earlier whenever we did the
Okay, we'll put it in the show notes if I remember to.
Maybe I'll throw it over onto this.
Remember to.
Yeah, I'll throw it over onto this document later.
I do the editing. Branalyn does all the making nice-ing.
All the YouTube-y stuff.
Yeah, I don't know how to do any of that.
All right, so you released the first version, and then people really wanted a graphical user interface, and so you did that. And then I kind of don't know what happened with version 2, but version 3 came along pretty quickly, and that was this really awesome thing that quickly put together our PDFs, but all it was doing was stitching them together. All it was doing, that was nothing. And then we could also add a border around it, which is awesome because, like Kathleen said, just slapping your what is the word, pattern together doesn't make a projector.
It is fast. I will admit that. You can just highlight everything, press Control-A, Control-C to copy, move over to the big sheet of paper, and Control-V, let it just plop it in the middle of the page and be done. And then print. That's super easy.
The problem is a lot of times it's not the middle of the page. A lot of the time it's the top right corner or something. And so
it's wherever the middle when you're looking at it of the screen. It's not the middle of the page. You're right. So, but even then, they don't do anything else. They just there. It's easy and it's fast, but it's not as usable for customers.
So PDF Stitcher solved that problem by giving us a margin around it, and then PDF Stitcher now in version 4. Is it 4 now?
I think it's 0.4. The version numbers are very arbitrary. So
I don't understand version numbers of development.
You just make them up.
You should start using alphabets and stuff. Not
Roman even numerals.
Roman numerals and Russian letters.
I think it is 0.4 alpha 1 beta 1 is where it's at now.
Whatever that is, has added now where you can there's actually little tabs at the top where we've got different screens that we can use and change layers and change line thicknesses and change line colors. Just so many things that Charlotte has listened to what we've said. Hey, this would be really helpful. And even when we think, oh, this will be fast and easy, and it's so not, she's taken the time to figure that out and do what she can. And it's amazing and so helpful. So just from me, my own personal Branalyn right here, thank you so much. And it's amazing what you've done. And so from everybody else, I'm sure too. When you do have a problem, you can post about it on Projectors for Sewing, and Charlotte will see that. And then
especially if you tag me in the post, it's helpful.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah, you can tag her in the post, and would you just use the @ symbol and start typing Charlotte Curtis. Her little name will come up there, and you can click it. And
is that how you tag people? I'm horrible at this. I would just start typing people's names, and sometimes it'll show up with their name. I'd be like, okay, click on that. If it doesn't show up, I'm just like, oh well, I'm not going to mention them.
Here's my little caveat there. Even with the @ symbol, it doesn't always work. I was trying to tag Pete Norris the other day, and I could not make it work.
Anyway, continuing.
But if you also use the hashtag PDF, which is the #
or PDF
Stitcher, then that's something that Charlotte tracks so that she can see when people are like, hey, I have a problem. And like she said, sometimes you might be doing something wrong because you haven't used it before. And sometimes when you use a new program, usually when you use a new program, there's a learning curve. But sometimes it is a bug in the system or a different kind of PDF than the program is expecting or something. So definitely let her know because she can't fix it if she doesn't know it's a problem.
Right. And if you've never used this before and you're a sewer or a business that's going to start using projectors and you want to be able to use your PDFs, Branalyn has an excellent tutorial that she goes through step by step using the most recent released version. It's not the one that's upcoming. And she walks you through how to use it for your existing PDF printable patterns on her sewing channel, which is Dailey Sews and Stuff, Dailey Sews and Stuff.
I always forget to add that E. It's just automatic for me now. But yes.
Right. Well, it's because it's your name, so you remember. It's just
I know.
not everyone knows that your name is spelled with an EY.
No.
They will,
I don't know what's wrong. I don't know what's wrong with their telepathy. It's not working. But I will do a new one whenever the new version is official, or whenever Charlotte tells me, "Hey, go ahead and just do it." And so we'll get that, because there's so many new things that got added, and it just does so much now. So we talked about how this could be really helpful for you if you are a business who wants to use those patterns. But Charlotte, this is something like I don't think Kathleen and I can talk about at all, because I have no idea. What if somebody does know how, like, if somebody knows how to write programs and they're coming across this problem all the time when they're sewing, how did you go from, hey, I can actually do this? I don't mean all the technically stuff, but how does somebody think, hey, this is a problem that can actually be solved by writing this computer program?
I guess that's just sort of my default to doing things. I try to, anything that I'm doing on the computer, if I have to do it a bunch of times and it's really annoying and manual and tedious, I'll probably write some kind of program to handle it for me. So, sometimes if I have to rename a whole bunch of files, I've done that before, or if I'm creating the same graph over and over again, I'll write code to do that. I won't just manually go in Excel and select points and plot and change the label name and do it all by hand, right? So, so when I actually initially looked into making an Inkscape plugin that would import all the pages at once, because one of the challenges with using Inkscape is you have to import one page at a time. So that's pretty slow. And then when I started looking into it, I realized that
it doesn't import layers either, I don't think.
No, it also doesn't import layers.
So that was my frustration. So if you're a pattern designer, please use Illustrator. I'm sorry. It's so much easier.
I've actually been playing with Affinity Designer a bit lately, and it does seem to read the layers in a PDF. So that's pretty cool.
Is that open source?
I don't know, but it's a lot cheaper than Illustrator.
Yeah.
Okay, because right now I'm paying $30 a month for Illustrator, but I get the whole suite. I get Photoshop and Lightroom.
But you could pay $30 one time and have it.
Oh, that is a lot cheaper.
Yeah, and it has a 90-day free trial right now, because why not? So,
and it's $10 for Affinity Designer on your iPad. I don't know about other tablets.
Okay. I don't really do tablets. That's one thing people have asked me about is, can you make this mobile? And I don't know anything about mobile programming, and it's a whole new system and everything. So
I was just teasing.
Desktop only, but yeah.
I was just teasing her the other day. No, this was months ago. But I was like, if you need another project, I have another project for you. But for real, I mean, there's so many problems that we have as sewers that a simple computer program could actually solve. I think there really needs to be a really good app for your phone where you can keep everybody's measurements for whenever you're going to sew for them. There's a few out there, but
they're kind of clunky.
Yeah, they're super clunky. And so, I mean, I'd pay $1 or $2 for a really good app that lets me keep track of my all my measurements. And
or an app that lets you keep track of all your patterns and how much yardage you need. So that when you go to the store, you know how much to buy. Not that anyone's going to the store right now, but I've always been I don't know how many I need. Give me 5 yards.
That's why I want the other. Yeah.
Definitely going to have enough fabric.
I mean, it depends on how cute the fabric is.
Yeah. I mean, you might want to use it. A lot of actual sewers, I mean, that are serious, they don't buy based on the garment they're making. They just buy a bunch. They're like, I'm going to make a dress. I need 5 yards. Nah, make it 10 yards just in case. And it's a 2-month-old dress.
I'm feeling a little bit attacked right now.
I do it.
I'm just
I don't buy for the pattern. I just buy I'm like, I probably want to make a lot of stuff, so let's get by 5 yards. And you're like, it's on sale. Let's go by 10. It's fine. And
My
you get up
default
to
is like 1.5, but
yeah, you only really need like 1.5. But you're like, well, what if it shrinks? What if I make a mistake? What if I really
It's
like the
super
fabric
cute.
and
I'm
I
gonna
won't?
make
It's
2
super
things.
cute. Yeah. 5 things. I don't know. But I mean, having something where you can keep track of how much fabric you need per garment, especially if you're a production sewer, is very
Yeah.
useful. I mean, especially if you're a production sewer, you've dialed it down pretty good on how much fabric a particular garment takes. Because when you're pattern drafting, and you figure out how much fabric you need, I don't know if you guys know this, but you do layouts. I kind of go because it's just me and I'm lazy. But you do layouts where you find the most efficient way of putting things on different widths of fabric. You do this digitally because it's stupid to do it manually. I shouldn't say that because somebody probably does that and be like, oh, I'm offended. But then you add on a quarter or a half yard to how
that's
much it
why
is.
they always seem like an overestimate. Yeah, I
For
never
2 reasons.
pattern.
Yeah, for 2 reasons. One, for shrinkage of fabric. Although I've been mansplained by somebody on one of the Facebook groups that all fabric comes pre-shrunk now.
That is untrue.
I've been mansplained this. Okay. Anyway.
I wish people listening could see my eyebrow then, because
it's
no.
No, they're not. Please pre-wash her and pre-shrink. This was in regards to sending a home sewing pattern to a production sewer, like a manufacturer, not like you production sewing at home, like a manufacturer. I'm like, they don't pre-shrink anything because that's thousands of yards. But I've been told it's not okay. So it's for shrinkage because you can get up to 30% shrinkage depending on the fabric for when you wash and wear or dry clean and wear. Also for mistakes or pattern matching. So some people got time, I don't know about you, but I don't, to pattern match like their pockets and like, to make sure that the front and like the pieces all the pieces pattern match perfectly. That's what
sometimes it happens to me by happy accident.
Yeah, I just had that yesterday. Not because I didn't get time for that. That's why I do solids. But that's what it's for. Is the extra 1/4 inch or 1/2 inches for errors, shrinkage, and pattern matching. Also, you don't want to be telling people, hey, this really only needs 3/4 of a yard. And then they go, I didn't have enough fabric.
Oh yeah, I fully understand why it's
better to have a little too much than not enough, because you can't finish the garment with not enough.
Yeah.
It also depends on how the layout and how efficient they are. And most people are not going to be. Why should I say it's no? They're totally going to be efficient. I don't know about you, but I spend like forever trying to lay out pieces.
Oh yeah,
the most efficient. I can
overanalyze
squish this and like move it over 1/4 of an inch. I overanalyze. But this is made for people that don't.
I used to do that, but now I feel like I only have so much time to sew, and I have to squish all of my sewing time into such a little amount of time
when your kids are napping.
Yeah, if I lose a little bit of fabric, I mean, it depends on the fabric. There's some that I'm much more careful about than others, but
yeah. You know what'd be nice? Hey, Charlotte, if they had a program where you could get all the pattern pieces and tell them the width of the fabric, and then it figures out the most efficient way of laying it out.
I feel like this is one of those things that we think is so simple and is so not.
Yeah, no, I know it's not easy.
That is like totally my dream.
Because I could use that it's painful for me to have to lay it out because I'm already done with the pattern, and then I have to lay it all out for each size for like 3 different widths. So I have 11 sizes and 3 different widths. So that's 33 times say 5 pattern pieces. And that's why I'm like, I just add an extra 1/4 inch and be like, it's about this wide, and this like generally fits here. Pants usually take a one yard for 6 tees, so then I'll just reduce that by 1/2 yard.
One of the inspirations for adding the layer tab into PDF Stitcher is because I got this super nice power stretch fleecy like warm fabric from Discovery Trekking Fabrics. They're a Canadian company, but I think they're getting to be pretty well known. They sell a lot of like really, really high end fleece and stuff like that. Like not the cheap fleece that you see at Fabricland or Joann or whatever, but like the official Polar Tech, whatever. Anyway, so I had 2 yards of this beautiful power wool stretch stuff. And I wanted two yards, like 1 yard of each color. And I wanted to import my patterns into Inkscape and see how much I could squeeze out of it. And so I actually managed to, so that was where I thought, well, now I need to select just my size layer from this document. So that was where I kind of put in the layer selection tab. And then I imported it in, and I was able to get a pair of leggings and a like zip up soft shell jacket type thing from my 2 yards. Wow. Just by like, I imported the pieces and then sort of Tetris them all together digitally. Yeah. It's super fun to be able to do. I mean, you can do that on like with printing out paper and laying it out and everything as well. But
yeah,
I find it easier to do it on.
That is definitely something that's easier on with a paper pattern than with projecting, because a designer can't piece it together for you because they've got all the layers to contend with too. So
yeah, I guess all different sizes, and the different sizes are going to puzzle piece together differently, right? And then yeah, and it would be so nice to be able to do like, oh, okay, I'm going to make this, shirt for myself, but while I'm at it, I can probably squeeze in a child garment in the offcuts, right? So yeah, if you had some way of just, simply loading that up and moving them all together and making them all fit. Yeah, like you can do that with Inkscape or Affinity or whatever, but it would be great to have it in its own
for Charlotte's next project.
That's getting a little ambitious, but it would be excellent. Yeah.
Yeah. So Charlotte is saying that's not something she wants to take on. So all of you, because I'm sure there's like tons of you out there, all of you pattern users who are also programmers, y'all get on
that. That's a huge amount of our audience, by the way.
Oh, totally. Yes.
Yeah.
Like
the Venn diagram is like this.
It's basically one, and it's Charlotte, I imagine.
There have been quite a few people, actually. Yeah, there's a
couple other people who contribute.
Yeah.
There you go. It's not me. I hate programming. So basically, if you have PDF Stitcher and you have Inkscape and you have a projector, you can use that to plan out your outlay before you start cutting, which is essentially what the major manufacturers like in Bangladesh and India do. They have a big long sheet and they actually digitally figure out where every single pattern piece is. So some of the larger professional pattern drafting programs, which are, you have to contact them for price. So that's very pricey. We'll do
usually
that.
When they say that, oh no, actually, yeah, I could not do that.
As a small business, no, because it's like $5,000 or more. But they will do that. They will do production runs where they figure out where everything is placed. And it's not just one, it's like for the entire length of the fabric. This is like you doing it for yourself to figure out the most efficient way of cutting out your pattern pieces before you actually start cutting. Because you never want to start cutting and then find out, oh, you're missing like enough room to make a left side of the pants.
Or you cut out 2 left sides of the pants. I've done that.
Yeah. Oh, I've sewn like 2 left sleeves.
All of these people that demand that they want their pattern laid out flat because they don't want to cut on the fold. I'm like, how do you people cut pants? Because there is no way that I can cut.
Oh, no, I don't cut on the fold. I just have 2 pieces. I just have
folding my fabric.
I just have it folded in half.
I know, that's what I'm saying. That's the only way I can cut and make sure I actually have a mirrored set. I cannot cut.
Oh no,
one at a time.
So I have if you're watching that, I gotta move over this way, wrong way. If your pants are like this, I'm moving the little motion for the pant shape. All you do is, and this is a course in my course, so you don't have to take it anymore now that you've listened to this thing. You just tell it to mirror or it's reflect and copy, and then you just move it over. So it's actually a whole piece together, butt ended. So when you cut it out, you just cut.
So you're saying that if somebody's going to provide
around the periphery
flat pieces where you don't cut on the fold, then they also would provide both pant legs.
Yeah. Like, I don't know why you wouldn't do that.
I could do that.
I use my projector to test my patterns, and I'm not gonna
My projector has a mirror or a flip button on the remote, so you can actually.
Yeah, mine
mirror.
does. I don't have a remote.
Oh, okay. And then all of the text
Mine
is
doesn't have
reversed, so it's pretty clear when it's
reversed,
happened.
Yeah.
But
yeah, no. But like if it's like a front where it's cut on, we're talking about cut on fold now. The thing is that you would normally fold and then find the fold. So I just have it where it's reflected and it's two pieces, and I have a center line shown. Nobody needs to take my course now. I've just given out all the information. And
but that's the thing
with my option.
With my normal projector, and my hand is up in the air as if you could see me. With my normal projector, it doesn't bother me to cut on fold at all. It's not an issue, even with thick fabric. But with the ultra short throw, it actually, I see now why people are saying I don't want to cut on fold, because that one, it's such a small margin of error.
Yeah, when you raise it a little bit,
your calibration.
For thick fabric. Yeah. Thick fabric, not a problem. Thick fabric is a problem. Like a 1/4 of an inch or an 1/8 of an inch up higher makes a difference.
Yeah.
I've noticed that.
All right.
That's what I
got.
Anyway.
Charlotte, wrapping things up here because we've had you for almost an hour. Is it, well, first of all, before I do that, is there something
we wasted
else that
15
you wanted to
minutes
say
talking before this? Sorry, keep going.
We totally did.
No, I think we've about covered it. Yeah, it's got, layer stuff, and currently it says beta right now, but I'm basically just waiting for somebody to tell me that it's going to crash and burn horribly before, as soon as you say something is ready to be released, people expect that it's going to work really well. So if I call it, I'm kind of hedging my bets a little there and saying like, there might be some glitches. Please let me know and I will fix them before I, fully release. But
it's a soft opening.
Yeah, there's no difference. Like you can download beta one and use it. There's, no restrictions on that. It just, it comes with a caveat that things might not quite work perfectly.
Honestly, even if it's the official version, I mean, this is Charlotte doing something on her free time. She has a baby.
Even the official version is
without a team of testers behind her, without a team of other professional programmers really behind her. Like,
yeah,
it's fantastic.
So if there's a problem, let her know, but be kind.
Yeah, she will refund you 100% of the money you pay for that program.
Absolutely. Guaranteed. Yeah.
And if you're rude, she will ignore you.
Probably not.
Probably not. No, she'll still help you. Exciting new update? Did we forget that question?
Oh no, we talked about the exciting new update.
Was with that the new
that we just talked about it with the different layers and the line thicknesses.
Okay. And that's the only new update really.
That's still exciting.
I thought it was exciting.
Yeah. So I missed that little tidbit because I didn't hear you go, what's the exciting new update? Okay. Oh, I'm gonna have to edit this out. I'm not editing this part out. I'm busy and lazy.
I would just stick with busy. It sounds so much better than lazy.
I'm both.
Yeah, me too. Okay. Anyway, so Charlotte, let's wrap it up before you totally lose your mind here. What is your favorite time-saving tip? And I mean, use the PDF Stitcher, but is there anything else you want to add to that?
Okay, this is really weird from programming and projectors and all that, but I actually am super into my paper notebook. So I write things down and I keep track of what I need to get done. I do log bugs and stuff in GitHub, and I try to write things down, but I guess that's my time-saving tip. Write things down if it's on paper or if it's digitally, or, I'm not always going to remember everything that people tell me. So as soon as I get told, I try to make a note of it. Not a very exciting tip, but
sometimes then the problem is finding the note. I'm like, I know I wrote down something and it was important, but where is it?
Yeah, that's why I go for the notebook thing. But
I've started using OneNote because it's free. If you have Windows 10, and then I can add it onto my tablet because I don't have an iPhone or an iPad. I had a Samsung. But I write all that stuff down, and then on my tablet I can draw notes, and then I shared it with Branalyn, and then she can't find it. So
I can't find it.
I must have done something wrong. But that's easy because you can text search.
That's true.
Instead of going through tons of notebooks. But you know what? Whatever works for
somebody on the Projectors for Sewing group suggested to me Rocketbook, which you can write by hand and then take a picture, and it'll like keep
Oh,
it. And it's really cool, actually.
that's smart.
Yeah, I definitely find like the muscle memory from writing things down by hand helps me to remember it.
When I was an industrial engineer for an aerospace company, I used to have like a booklet. I would just take scrap paper and cut in half and hold it together with a binder clip. And I would just carry that around everywhere. And like every page was a different day. And I would just have like a stack. And people were like, oh no, we didn't say that. I'm like, oh yes, you did. Last week Thursday, you said to move this here because you wanted this done. And I said, are you sure? And you said yes.
How casually you're just like, when I worked for an aerospace company.
Yeah, no, don't get excited. I'm not that smart. Don't get excited. I don't know how I got the job. I think it's because the interviewer's wife was an industrial engineer, so you like a little soft spot for industrial engineers. So I got hired. I maintain like instruction sheets for assembling things, like complicated things.
Yes.
And that was my job. So like that's why I'm like, oh, I can do instructions for sewing. Like it's not a rocket engine.
It's very important.
It's not rocket scientist, as I worked for an aerospace engineer.
Yeah, I just did the generator part. Anyway, it wasn't the whole jet. Like
it was just like rocket. It was part of a rocket.
It was a generator. It wasn't a very long job. I was only there for like a year and a half. Anyway, where were we asking questions? So instead of asking you how do you price things, since you're not an active seller, yes. What's your view on pricing for handmade things? Like, is it worth the extra cost to a consumer, especially if you're like already a crafter? You always think, hey, I could make that.
Yeah, I definitely struggle with that personally. Like, I don't buy a lot of other handmade things.
But when you do, when do you find it's worth it, is what I'm asking.
Yeah, I would say in general, like I see people's prices and I think I have no idea how they're selling them for that little. Like, I realize that everyone is in a different market. And actually one thing that's tough with Etsy is, the sort of globalization of the craft market. Like, if I go to a local craft market, here in Calgary, where it's a fairly high cost of living type of environment, and, things will be, I've bought handmade things. You're like, oh, it seems totally reasonable to spend $20 for a, bar of conditioner. Like that's, kind of the local prices, and you look at how much the materials are and the time that goes into it, and all the overhead with running a small business. And but then with things like Etsy, now you're suddenly competing with different markets where people can get their materials for cheaper, and the cost of living is lower, and
right, that making $5 in an hour is
or you have people who are just selling because they really like to make quilts or something, but they don't need quilts, so they sell them basically cost of their materials. And that, I don't know, it's tough. So I don't really buy a lot of things on Etsy. I think I've bought like 2 or 3 things. Generally, it'll be things that I don't personally have the skill set for. My husband bought my engagement ring off of Etsy. I knew about it. It was,
It's actually really cool. I would not have thought about that. However, seriously, I have to do math again. However many years ago it was that my husband and I got engaged. That's not something that would have even occurred to me, but it's really cool that you can do that.
Yeah, like he did all the planning and everything, and he did all of that, but it's like, I know nothing about jewelry making or anything like that. So I guess for me, it's worth it when it's something outside of my skill set. I don't tend to buy like handmade children's clothes or anything like that because well, first of all, I have so many hand-me-down children's clothes,
and you can make them yourself.
And I could make them. So yeah, it's like.
But the people that are buying the high-price custom-made children's clothes do not have a skill set.
Exactly. Yeah.
So they want that quality, but they can't spend the time to learn. Oh my goodness. Speaking of children, someone's not happy.
Sounds unhappy. Yep. Yeah. So it's, for me, I guess that's where I am willing to spend for handmade, is when it's something that's not my skill set.
What do you automate? And I think you already answered this earlier.
Oh yeah, everything I can.
Your view is kind of, I know how to write a program. If I can write a program for this, I'm going to. Are there any, I don't know what the right word, commercial is not really the right word, but are there any like automation tools that you use that other people can use? I'm sorry.
Without actually learning a programming language.
I mean,
Yeah, preferably.
Yeah. I think on Mac there's Automator built into the operating system, and it's a sort of a drag and drop thing where you can, kind of say like, if this happens, do this. Oh, actually, that's another one. If this, then that. I think it's called IFTT.
Yeah,
There might be another
it's
T in
actually
there.
iftt.com because
Yeah,
it's an automator as well. You can drag and drop if this happens. Like if I get an email from blank, then send a reply email or something.
that's so
exactly.
cool.
Yeah, and it's integrated across all kinds of devices and everything. So like you can have it running on your phone. So like I have one where we have like this Wise Cam in our living room, and it like turns on the notifications when I leave the house. So it's like it knows that I am not in the house because my phone is not in the house, and then it simple things like that. Or you can have it like if you have a thermostat that's Wi-Fi
Simple
connected.
things, she says.
Yeah. So it's, and that's, yeah, I would say if you're into if you want to do a very simple introduction to automation, IFTT, some
It's if
number
then
of T's.
that.
Yeah.
It's like 3 T's.
Yes.
T.
If this,
I'll make sure it's right in the show notes.
It's stuff I just wrote it down. I totally forgot about that too. I don't use it, but I've heard about it, and I've heard it's like drag and drop logic.
Y'all are all like programming and technical with this, and I'm thinking I use if then statements with my kids.
Yeah, it's the same thing. If you do not clean up your toys, then you will not have dessert.
Exactly.
I usually do it oppositely. That. If you clean up your toys, then you'll have dessert. But whatever.
Yeah. I know some people are like actually nice parents and are positive, but I'm Asian, so like we can't compliment people. Like physically hurts me to compliment people.
So how can people find you, and then we'll let you go.
Either in the Projectors for Sewing Facebook group, or I am on Instagram with very infrequent posts at c.f.curtis, or GitHub at cfcurtis as well.
All right. And so a question for our viewers this week, go to our Facebook group, which is the Small Business Sewing Community, and you can answer our question for the week, which will be, number 1, have you tried PDF Stitcher yet? And number 2, what other problems do you have that could be solved with a computer program like this? And maybe we can find some people who would be interested in doing that. So,
and
Charlotte,
maybe I'll join your Facebook group because I didn't know it existed. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Charlotte, for coming and taking time out of your job that actually pays you real money. And
super appreciate
coming to talk to us about this. And we so appreciate your program. It is so helpful.
Thank you. I'm glad. It's fun to chat with you.
All right. Bye, Charlotte.
Okay. Bye. This has been Cathleen from Sunny Mountain Patterns and Branalyn and Dailey from Dailey Sews and Stuff with Charlotte Curtis, who developed the PDF Stitcher. You can find her again on the Projectors for Sewing Facebook group. Thanks for listening. Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye.